Now let's apply what we've learned about adding integers to absolute value and opposites. So in this first example, we have the absolute value of 3 plus negative 6. Well, remember we want to treat our absolute value bars like parentheses. So that means we're going to come inside the absolute value bars and we're going to add before we actually take the absolute value. So we're going to add 3 plus negative 6, which gives us negative 3. Next, we take the absolute value of negative 3, which gives us 3. In the following example, number 2, we're going to go within the absolute value bars and work from the inside parentheses out using our order of operations. Therefore, we're going to add negative 4 plus negative 6 as our first step, which gives us negative 10. Next, we need to add what's inside our absolute value bars, 2 plus negative 10 to give us negative 8. And lastly, we'll take the absolute value and that's going to give us 8. In the third example, we have a 3 beside our absolute value bars. There's an understood multiplication symbol between the 3 and the absolute value bars, just like when we have a number beside parentheses. That actually means the number times whatever's in parentheses. Same idea. So here we have 3 times the absolute value of negative 2 plus 6. So I'm going to go within the absolute value bars first, since I'm going to treat those like parentheses, and I'm going to add the 6 and the negative 2 to get 4. So I'm left with 3 times the absolute value of 4. Next, I'm going to take the absolute value of 4, which gives me 4. Then I'm going to multiply, which gives me 12. In example number 4, I have 2 times the absolute value of negative 5 plus 3 times the absolute value of negative 5 plus negative 7. So I can go ahead and take the absolute value of negative 5, which is 5, and understand that 2 is being multiplied by the absolute value of negative 5. Then in the next part, I need to go ahead and add the negative 5 and the negative 7 to give me negative 12. For my next step, I can multiply 2 times 5, and at the same time I can go ahead and find the absolute value of negative 12, which is 12. Obviously, I'm going to multiply before I add, so I end up with 10 plus 36, which gives me 46 for number 4. Now, I'd like you to go to the next slide, and here you have 4 very similar problems, and you can refer to the examples we just did. And I'd like for you to go ahead and pause the video and try these. You should have ended up with the answers 10 for number 1, 2 should be number 10, should be 10 also, 3 should be 8, and 4 should be 36. Next, we're going to practice adding negatives where we have decimals. So this is rational numbers. So we're going to practice adding rational numbers. In the first example, we are adding 2 negatives. So I'd like you to try that. You should be lining up all your decimals and remembering that the rule for adding same signs is you're going to add and keep the sign. So pause the video and try number 1, showing all your steps. You should have negative 18.8. Now for number 2, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to line up your decimals. However, in this case, we're adding unlike signs. So you need to keep in mind, what do you do when you add unlike signs? Do you add or subtract? And how do you determine the sign of the answer? So give that one a try. For number 2, you should end up with negative 3.2. Number 3, again, we have unlike signs. So think about what you do when you have unlike signs and whether you would add or subtract and how you determine the sign of the number. And then think about what you want to make sure you do whenever you're dealing with decimals. Give number 3 a try. You should end up with 275 and 81 hundredths for number 3. If you've made any mistakes, you always want to double check a couple things. Number one, remember that if you have same signs, that you add and you keep the sign. If you have different signs, then you want to make sure that you subtract the two numbers and you have the sign of whichever one you have more of. So we'll call that sign of most. So that's for different signs. Now, the other thing you want to keep in mind is that you are working with decimals and you have to line up place values whenever you're working with decimals. So make sure that you line up your place values. So now let's move on to the last slide, in which we have some more absolute value, and we're going to determine which is bigger, the addition problem on the left or the addition problem on the right. So the first one in number one, you need to think about, would you add first or take the absolute value first? And then on the other side, on the right hand side, would you add first or would you take the absolute value first? So give those a shot and let's see how you do. So with number one, you should have added first on the left hand side and taken the absolute value first on the right hand side. And when you do that, you will end up with 3.18 or 3 1800ths is less than 3.22 or 3 2200ths. Now let's move on to number two. Go ahead and try number two and see how you do. In number two, you'll end up with 15 2/10 is less than 17. This is the end of video 2 for adding integers.